IMF approves $464 million for Ethiopia as reform program stays on track. Ethiopia has secured an additional $464 million from the International Monetary Fund after the lender concluded that the country's economic reform program remains broadly on course, while also approving about $200 million in extra support to cushion the economy against higher fuel import costs triggered by the war in the Middle East. The latest disbursement follows the IMF Executive Board's completion of the fifth review of Ethiopia's 48-month extended credit facility program. With the new release, total IMF disbursements under the arrangement have reached about $2.647 billion. The program, approved in July 2024, has a total value of SDR 2.556 billion, equivalent to about $3.4 billion at the time of approval, and is intended to support Ethiopia's homegrown economic reform agenda. The fund said implementation of the program has remained strong, with all quantitative performance criteria and most indicative targets achieved. Although the government contribution to the Productive Safety Nets program was below target, higher than expected donor financing resulted in total support to beneficiaries exceeding program objectives, including additional assistance for urban households affected by external shocks. The IMF also cited continued improvements in Ethiopia's public finances, noting that tax revenues and fiscal outcomes have remained robust. It said maintaining disciplined expenditure management alongside revenue administration reforms would be important to preserve fiscal sustainability while ensuring resources remain available for development priorities. It added that gradually removing fuel subsidies while protecting vulnerable households would create additional fiscal space for social and economic spending. On monetary policy, the fund said a restrictive stance remains appropriate to contain inflationary pressures. It welcomed ongoing efforts by the National Bank of Ethiopia to improve the functioning of the foreign exchange market through the gradual relaxation of exchange restrictions, development of the interbank foreign exchange market, enforcement of net open foreign exchange position limits, and measures aimed at increasing competition among banks. The IMF also said the central bank should be prepared to tighten monetary policy further if inflationary pressures intensify. Debt restructuring also advanced during the review period, according to the fund. Ethiopia has signed agreements with several official bilateral creditors and made substantial progress in negotiations with commercial lenders. The IMF also welcomed the agreement in principle reached with Eurobond holders, saying the financing assurances received remain consistent with program requirements. The fund called for continued reforms to strengthen financial sector supervision, reinforce financial safety nets, and modernize the monetary policy framework. It also urged authorities to complete reforms to the central bank's governance, including appointing additional independent board members and completing its recapitalization, while maintaining close oversight of private sector credit growth. Nigel Clark, the IMF's deputy managing director and acting chair, said Ethiopia had continued to advance its reform program despite operating in a difficult external environment. The authorities continue to make progress in advancing their economic reform agenda, with favorable macroeconomic outcomes despite a challenging environment, Clark said. He added that the conflict in the Middle East represented a significant external shock and that continued reforms, together with timely policy responses, will be necessary to sustain macroeconomic stability. Clark also said completing debt restructuring through continued engagement with creditors, exercising caution in new borrowing, and developing a deeper domestic currency debt market would be important to reduce debt vulnerabilities over the medium term. Thank you for staying with us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel.